One of the big problem with the traditional systems all over America is because we're doing Yoruba like Christians. We're doing the Akan tradition like Muslims and Christians and Hebrews. These are not the same things. Now let me be clear. Let me start at the top. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are fragments of the African spiritual system. They're just small pieces of it that other cultures took and made their way with it. And it works for them. It may not work the way we want it to work, but for them, coming from nothing, having just a little piece of our magic is something. But the fundamental in all of it is we're talking about science, right? We're talking about nature. The earth is alive. The earth breathes. Believe it or not, the air that we are living in, it breathes. It has billions of life form all around my hand, having babies, having relations. We can't even see them. In our body, we got the billions of molecules. We got the billions of protons and neutrons. We can't see them, but they're all having the same kind of relationship. And guess what? They're following the same laws that the rest of nature is following. Okay? And if we are to learn how to live, what our ancestors did was master the knowledge of themselves, their physiological self, their psychological self, their spiritual self. Then they mastered the knowledge of nature and the knowledge of the cosmos. And what they realize is, damn, the laws that govern all these different spheres, the cosmos, nature, and the human body itself, is the same law. So let's master a way to explain the law to ourselves. That's where the religion thing comes in. Religion, a set of rules, a set of rituals based on certain principles to explain to ourselves the laws of nature and the laws of the cosmos and the laws of our anatomy and how they should work in sync with one another. That's when you get the harmony. And so that's why you have specific rituals. Even the way you build a family is built according to the laws of nature. If you don't use those laws, you're going to have conflict. All of us living have it. I've been married 42 years, but we haven't followed the laws of nature. We've been doing like this. Sometimes we up on the hill, sometimes we in the valley. The more we get older and we have to submit to those laws, the more we realize how much time we wasted in ignorance, not understanding the laws of nature that our ancestors was explaining to us through rituals and culture. Now, Brother Reggie told me one day, and I've been using it everywhere I go, Brother Reggie, what Hotep meant. You know, I had accepted that Hotep meant peace, like Salam Alaikum or Shalom. Brother Reggie, who was one of my students, who's quite exceeded his teacher in this knowledge, said, no, Brother Small, Hotep means a lot more than that. Look at it. It's a plate full with, not a plate, what do you call it? A platter full with all sorts of foods and fruits and vegetables, and a hand is handing it. So you're saying, I'm giving all of my sustenance and essence to you. And when you repeat, you said, I too am giving all of my sustenance and essence to you. That's heavier than peace. You know, that's deeper than peace, because you're saying, I am recognizing the divine in you, and I'm taking the divine in me and making a fusion with the divine in you. Me and you're one. That's a much deeper place to be. But when we talk about African spirituality, if I can use the Yoruba piece and show you really quick, right? The ones that you know very well. I use it over and over, and sometimes people miss it. But they say Shango, god of thunder and lightning and so forth. But Shango represents the courage in any man or woman to change yourself for a higher self. When we talk about coming into the conscious community, well, that process that you move to come into what you call the conscious community in yourself, the courage it takes to make that change, that's Shango. That's the dynamic king. That's the dynamic energy. That's Shango. But Shango must marry somebody. So Shango always marries Oya. What is Oya? The wind. Change in process. She blows away the old and the stale and let the new and the fresh comes into being. Now, Oya is not a person. It's a symbol of something happening within your own mind. Right? And then Oya will marry Ogun. Everybody say Ogun is the god of iron, the god of war. But there's nobody called Ogun. There's no man jumping around the forest with a sword and shit. Okay? Ogun is a concept that represents transformation that comes as a result of the change, that comes as a result of the courage to change yourself. You understand? And so when we look at all of our tradition, the thing that we call God comes from the mind of the black man. God is the greatest possibility the black man could imagine. And he didn't just imagine it, he realized it from studying the cosmos, studying nature, studying himself, that there is something that's greater than anything that he could possibly imagine. And so all of his system is designed so that we can redesign ourselves to be like the greatest thing that he could imagine, the divine. That's what the processes are. But some of us have taken it into spookism and craziness. No. How do I become God? When Brother Allah was walking these streets in the 60s saying we were God, people laughed at him. When Elijah Muhammad came and said we were God, people laughed at him. They didn't understand what those men knew. You're not God yet. You're still cooking, okay? The conscious knowledge has got you stewing, you're cooking. But what you're trying to do is arrive at a consciousness that would allow you to have a relationship with the forces and powers in nature such that you can use those forces and powers as an extension of your own being. Okay? So, all of us stand here, for instance, we say we got ancestors. And if you ask anyone, how you doing, my brother, about ancestors, they'll tell you, you know, my ancestor so-and-so, he died so-and-so. No, you are your ancestors. You are the only living force that has ever lived. Okay? Let me make that clear. When the thing we call God existed only as itself, before it spun us off of it, we were already a part of it.
Like the water
you understand?
In the ocean, it's
right.
part of the ocean.
Right. You are that thing the ancient called Nun. It expressed itself as you into the rest of its beingness. Okay? Your mother and your father, through a sperm and an egg, deposit themselves, not in you, deposited themselves as you. Now listen to the difference in that now. They didn't deposit themselves in you, they deposited themselves as you. So you are your mother and your father, you are your grandparents, you are your great-parents, and you go back infinitely to the divine causation that is the totality of creation itself. That's the part that the white man don't want you to grasp, because if you grasp that, you'll give up your fear of death. And if you give up your fear of death, nobody can make you a slave again. But as long as you fear death, you can be made a slave. And the reason you fear death is because you're ignorant of the fact of your own living that can never die. You had a question of that.
How?